First thing I notice about this question is we're being asked to interpret an equation, and it kind of looks like a y equals mx plus b. It's a little twisted, right? They put the b first, but you should notice when there's a line that might help you understand what's going on. But let's look at the story. An object hangs from a spring. The formula L equals 30 plus 2w relates the length L in centimeters of the spring to the weight w in newtons of the object, which the following describes the meaning of the 2 in this context. Well, the 2 kind of sounds like a slope. And we know that with a story, a slope is some sort of rate. So let's just see if there's something that sounds like a slope. So A, the length in centimeters of the spring with no weight attached. Well, no weight would be W equals 0. And since W is kind of behaving like our X, that sounds like a Y-intercept. So that would be the B. That would be 30. So they could have asked about that, but they didn't here. So no coincidence, though, that there is a choice that represents the other thing with a line that we need to care about. B, the weight in newtons of an object that will stretch the spring 30 centimeters. Well, again, that doesn't sound like a slope. That sounds like a point, right? So that sounds like if W is 2, it's going to go 30, and I don't think that's how it's going to work. So this is just a point. This is not even, it doesn't sound like a slope. C, the increase in the weight, okay, in newtons of the object for each 1 centimeter increase in the length of the spring. That at least sounds vaguely like a slope, but let's look at D. The increase in length, okay, in centimeters of the spring for each 1 Newton increase in the weight of the object. Okay, so I know what the answer is because we can think of this as a slope with units, but let's hold off on that for a second. Let's just kind of choose one of these choices and see if we can prove it, right? So the thing that I would want to change is the weight. So this choice D is the easiest thing to prove, right? A 1 Newton increase in the weight of the object. So you could do 0 as the weight, but let's just, for the sake of kind of making it kind of real, let's do that the weight is 1. Then the length would be 30 plus 2 times 1. So that is a length of 32. So now if we follow the instruction in choice D and we do a 1 Newton increase in the weight, now the weight is 2. And again, we can use the equation, 30 plus 2 times 2 is 34. So look at that. The increase in the length of the spring for each 1 Newton increase in the weight of the object, we increased by 1 Newton, and that meant we increased the length by 2. So that's what it should be. That would be enough for me to pick D. So that's it. That's it. That's the whole thing here. And the reason that that's the answer and not choice C is flipping the units of the slope here. So remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. In this case, the change in L over the change in W, right? So the L is the length in centimeters. So centimeters, change in centimeters, over the change in the W, which is newtons. Okay. So that is 2, right? So that's 2 centimeters per 1 Newton, right? So what is the 2? It is the increase in length, so 2 centimeters divided by each 1 Newton increase in the weight of the object. This is flipping it. If this is saying this is 2 newtons per 1 centimeter, right? So it's putting the units in the wrong places. I think that that's confusing to think about. I have an intuitive sense of it, but I do find that that would be confusing because the wording is so similar and it just already slope is kind of backwards anyway because you have the y on top instead of the x. So my advice is just arithmetize here. Just pick the choice that's easiest to work with. And plugging into W is definitely plugging into L because it's definitely easier than plugging into L because plugging into W is just arithmetic, right? Get a value of L easily. But plugging into L would require algebra. So between C and D, it's easier for me to try out D with arithmetize. And when it worked, I'm just like, okay, that's the one. And again, that comes from confidence and knowing that these two things are just switching the units. And so there really wouldn't be a situation where C would also work. And I know with arithmetize, I normally say you got to check all the choices, but it really couldn't be the case that the increase in weight of newtons per centimeter is the same as the increase in the centimeters per Newton. The only way that would happen is if the slopes were 1. But then they couldn't give us these two choices because then it would be the same and we wouldn't be able to tell them apart. So at least I don't think they'd be able to do that because then it would be really mean because it would kind of be true both ways. But whatever the case, hopefully you understand now through one of the ways I described why this answer is what it is. But I would say the bigger thing to take away from this question is If you are having trouble understanding an equation and how it works, putting numbers into that equation is a great way to visualize it, right? So we don't have to think about it conceptually. We can see it work. We can see how things change. And just remember, if we're trying to understand the slope, 2 numbers, 2 points, and then we can see the change, because that's what a slope is. It's a change between 2 things.